They spent money on white women. They set up bars and they went playing pool and golf for $1,000 a hole. And they were known to make millions and millions when there wasn't no high taxes. And they were not hindered by white America. They were allowed to see the white America has completely closed all the doors on me. I'm not allowed to work in America, out of America. I was stopped right in my prime just when I started making money. So you can't compare me with nobody like Joe Lewis or nobody.
If you are black, if you are brown, if you are indigenous, and if you are poor, this system is rigged and it is rotten to the core, and we gonna unbring it. That's it. And that's all.
That other kind of socialism that revolutionizes the workplace, brings democracy to the workplace for the first time.
So that's one way. And then the other thing is, in my more optimistic days, he's such a perfect endpoint of everything that is toxic and dysfunctional about the United States, about capitalism, about the 80s, that maybe this is the final sort of disgusting burst before we evolve or change to something better.
Talk about some things about why we need a new party. So I thought that'd be a good way to kind of do this. Why do we need a new party? We need a new party because both parties suck.
What are they talking about? Fortified. Are you fortified for the long run? Do you have your cemetery clothes on? Are you coffin ready to live and die for something bigger than you, like a fundamental transformation of a capitalist civilization?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kahmali Rose. Thank you for being with us. If you haven't done so already, please do us a favor and immediately hit that like button down there. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and please share this out. Just hit that link to share it out far and wide. Please help us grow this channel. We need your help and your support. If you can afford to do so, please do us a favor and head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/radical democracy. And you'll find links in the description box below. Just open up the description box, scroll down to the bottom. You'll see links to our Patreon as well as our coffee page. You can become a member on Patreon for as low as $1 a month. And you can tip us any amount on coffee at ko-fi.com/radical democracy. You can also now that we have reached the threshold for monetization and been approved for the YouTube partner program, you can now also support the show with a super chat on YouTube. So if you'd like to drop us a super chat, we'll read all the comments from your super chats. We read all the comments from coffee as well. If we see any coffee tips come in live on the stream, and we will shout those out as well for sure. So please, drop us a tip, a donation, support independent media, support independent Black media, please. By supporting the show, you also support democracy in the workplace as well. We are trying to build democracy here at Radical Democracy. One worker, one vote for all major decisions. What we do for work, how we work, who gets to work, when we work, and what we do with all the profits of our labor, the surplus of our labor. So we will decide that democratically here at this workplace. So please support those movements, support our show, Patreon, coffee, or right here on YouTube with the super chat. Really appreciate any channel any means that you use. Coffee is always the way to get us the most without any sort of platform fees, but every way helps. So we appreciate any way that you can support our show. Thank you so much to everyone. Shout out to our super producer, Tammy, who's always in the background, just making things happen, keeping the lights on around here. So appreciate all that she does as well. And then, of course, yet another massive thank you to Ian Olson, aka What Up America, aka Plasmon, for creating that intro music, that awesome intro music that you just heard at the beginning of the show. So shout out to What Up America for their amazing work there. Please check out their work on SoundCloud, Plasmon at SoundCloud. Thank you so much to What Up America, and to everyone in our Patreon community. X as well is one of our Patreon members who created our logo, which if you're watching this on YouTube, hopefully you're seeing a watermark there on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube right now. So hopefully you see the watermark there. That logo was created by X from our Patreon community. So we appreciate all the support that we get from all the folks in our community. All right, we got a lot to get to today. I'm really going to try to keep these shows a lot tighter, a lot shorter. So 2 hours or less is the goal here, because I know people don't have all the time in the world to spend. And I do appreciate all the time that you do spend with us. So I am going to try to be cognizant of that and get through these stories as quickly as possible. So what's up, Mark? I see you in there. Shout out to Mark. I see you in those comments. What's up, Mark? Shout out to Mark McKeever from the community, Patreon community as well. Love the support. All right, so we are going to get right to it. We got a lot to get to, as I said. First up is going to be a story that I came across. That's just one of these stories that I want to, when I see these, if I see these things and they pique my interest, I'm using this platform to show this stuff off. So here's a story that I came across and just wanted to add some attention to. It was a weird one that haven't seen too much around, but just one of those weird things that just white folks doing white folk shit. Let's check this story out here. All right, this was reported on BET.com, and this is a story about a white male professor who allegedly posed as a black woman to bully women at the University of New Hampshire. So Craig Chapman has since been fired from his teaching position. And he was teaching at the University of New Hampshire, where he was, subsequently bullying his, women there. So a white male professor from the University of New Hampshire allegedly posed as a woman of color to bully fellow staff members. Craig Chapman has been fired for reportedly secretly tweeting under the name Science Femme and handle @Piney_the to criticize progressives, transgender people, and people of color to his 13,000 followers. According to the school's newspaper, The New Hampshire, in a June 30th post on Twitter, Chapman tweeted, "I was successful in killing my department's woke statement on recent social unrest, calling it a, quote, toxic ideology that cannot be given an inch," end quote. He also bragged about, quote, removing all woke terminology from the statement, including anti-racism, white supremacy, white privilege, and claims of systemic racism, end quote. Both Chapman's personal and burner accounts have since been deleted. Chapman also allegedly used his fake account to combat claims of sexism and racism, even as in reality, he was perpetrating the identity of a woman of color. Quote, "You know I'm a woman of color, right? Racist," end quote. The Science Femme account replied. So this is his account, this white dude's account saying, "You know I'm a woman of color, right? Racist." In other posts, he claimed to be, quote, an immigrant woman of color who grew up in poverty, sleeping on a dirt floor, end quote. So now he's just perpetuating some really gross stereotypes here, equating immigrants with automatically with poverty, and this idea that they're dirty, that immigrants are this, they like to associate like dirt and filth and being dirty, and it connects to like ideas of like these people being diseased and othered. And so just he's hitting every point here. So Chapman is the latest in a series of white people who have faked their race. Yeah, so all right, let's okay. So this was just one that I honestly I don't get too upset by these things. This is more like it's gross and it's terrible and it's awful. I don't let it, it's just absurd. It's absurd. It's totally twisted. Like, this dude is out here, trying to, he's literally like doing exactly what he claims, while simultaneously claiming that like racism doesn't exist and systemic racism doesn't exist. Here, this white man is pretending to be a black woman, to somehow change his status in his perceived status in life. So it's just especially gross, and I don't have too much commentary on there other than to say, it's just another one in the line of the Jessica Krug, Rachel Dolezal. Was it? There was a McLaughlin. I think it's Judy McLaughlin, but I don't want to screw up these people's names and end up calling somebody the wrong person out. No, Lori McLaughlin, I think, is that lady with the got our kids into school. Like on some. Yeah, the celebrity who like got our kids, paid to get our kids access into school. But I'm just trying to see if this is whatever. Okay, so I think it's Judy McLaughlin, but I don't want to. I'm not 100% on that one. But anywho, these were folks that were pretending to be a race that they weren't. Of course, Elizabeth Warren is in that same vein, and so. Here's yet another, like, this is different, of course, because those are people that are actually like out there in the, navigating through the world, through the physical world, pretending to be another race. All those other examples that I gave, Rachel Dolezal, Elizabeth Warren, these were folks that were, portraying themselves in the physical realm. That, this guy was doing it on the internet, online. And it was especially gross because he was using that identity to turn around and to like harass people of color, women, people of color, transgender people. So he's clearly just a bigoted dude that wanted to spew his bigotry and wasn't bold enough to just use his own identity. If racism doesn't exist, dude, right? Like, you should be able to just use your white identity and say these things, man. And it doesn't exist, right? Like, systemic racism isn't a problem. So it's just particularly Beth Ann McLaughlin. Okay, thank you so much for the correction. Beth Ann McLaughlin is the white woman who pretended to be a Native American professor. So thank you for the correction. That's from Tammy. That's super producer Tammy in the background doing the thing. So yes, and Mark McKeever says this story is so 2020. New curse word. Whoa, my lights just flashed. Sorry, that was weird. Sorry, a little spooky. This is whoa. Okay, this is. I think this. We're in the middle of a storm right now. Oh shit! One of my lights just went out. Hold on one second, y'all. All right, super producer, you think you can correct me? All right, yeah. Sorry, y'all. All right, so I hope that my lights remain on here, but we are in the middle of a storm here, and so there's some chance that here we're gonna get some more light cranked up in here, and if we can fix, sorry, we were a little dark there. Sorry about that. So unfortunately, these are that's what we gotta deal with. My apologies. Okay, we're back. All right, so okay. But yes, Mark, this story is so 2020 and just so indicative of what we've had to deal with this year. So all right. Let me keep pushing along. Damn, y'all. Sorry. We are having like brownouts where I am right now. So just know if things cut out all of a sudden, it's because the power went out in this neighborhood that I'm in here, and or at least on the street, it seems. So sorry, y'all. Having some power issues. Hopefully that doesn't damage our internet connection, but it looks like everything's good. Let me know in the chat, if everything still seems good, if I'm still coming through, you can hear me okay, see me okay, all that good stuff. Let me know. I'll take a quick sip of some liquids here. All right. Okay. So all that being said, help us. Shit, man, this is terrible. Y'all, I'm so sorry. Listen, if you want to help us, we need you to help us keep the lights on around here, folks. So this is why we need your support, all right? If you would like to help us keep the lights on around here, literally, we're going to need your support. We need you to head over, right now, if you haven't already, head over to patreon.com/radical democracy, and please help us pay our monthly light bill here. We need your support. So help us literally keep the lights on. Support the show. Join our Patreon community for as low as $1 a month. For as low as $5 a month, you can join our Discord server as well. We're going to, drop us a super chat if you want, support us that way, or you can also support us on Coffee. They take out no fees on Coffee, so it's the best way to get funds directly to us. And that's at coffee.com/radical democracy, ko-fi.com/radical democracy. Support the show, and we'll have a backup generator and all that good stuff, and we can literally keep the lights on around here. We're a long ways off from that. Don't worry, folks. All right, so we're gonna keep on charging through here. Thank you, Mark. Mark says it's all good. Yep, it's October. It's spooky. I'm telling you, this is our Halloween themed show. Like, if y'all didn't know, in case you didn't know, clearly this is our Halloween themed episode. Might be some ghosts just floating around through here. Things are going down. All right, so we're gonna keep cruising along. Let's keep cruising along. Looks like the lights are staying on for now, so let's make this happen. All right, cruising through. Next story up. All right. So for our next story, we have Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump have been in talks for a stimulus deal. There, is still some hope that we could get a stimulus deal before the election, and it would certainly seem to be beneficial, to anyone involved, honestly, politically. It would behoove them to get a deal done because, politically, but just from a moral, ethical, economic standpoint, it's like people are suffering right now and people need this help. People absolutely are being crushed right now under the weight of unemployment, and the housing crisis, with the eviction moratorium being lifted, there is just, folks are having to take on more expense, even not having to make meals for kids at home because they're not getting school lunches anymore. I mean, people's expenses are just, people are at the edge. They're living on the edge right now, and they absolutely need the support because things have shut down for now, at least we've been in this now, over 6 months, 7 months now. And there is no sign of any end in sight. And so people need help. And there's if something doesn't get done soon, there's they go on break through December. And so if something doesn't get done before the end of November, nothing's getting done until after the inauguration in February. And so, probably until February, so that's where we are right now. And so there's been some talks recently between Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump about this a potential stimulus deal. And Donald Trump in the White House offered a $1.8 trillion stimulus, and Nancy Pelosi rejected that offer. So we're going to take a look at what was in the offer, and also, what are the consequences of this? What are some of the political ramifications surrounding this? So let's take a look at that story, and then we will discuss. This is from CNET. White House's $1.8 trillion stimulus package offer. Everything in it, including a $1,200 check. So if Congress can pass another stimulus relief law this year, will the House and Senate do it through a series of focused bills targeting specific issues, or with a large comprehensive package that addresses a range of funding? Both approaches would help tackle the ongoing effects of the coronavirus pandemic on the economy and public health, currently affecting hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. Over 214,000 people in the U.S. have died from COVID-19, according to Johns Hopkins University. President Donald Trump, who announced on October 2nd that he and First Lady Melania had tested positive for coronavirus, continues to urge negotiators to work together on a new stimulus bill, despite flip-flopping on stopping negotiations and going big on a $1.8 trillion package presented on October 9th. The bill supports $1,200 stimulus checks and a renewal of payroll assistance for the airlines and other industries. The current White House proposal is for a $1.8 trillion package, less than the $2.2 trillion bill put forward by Democrats. All right. So what the White House's $1.8 trillion stimulus offer contains. So one, it includes another stimulus payment. So stimulus checks up to $1,200 for eligible adults and $1,000 for qualifying child dependents. The CARES Act, by the way, set dependent payments at $500. So this would be double what was included for qualifying child dependents. So more for families than the CARES Act for the one-time payments. This could actually include more money than before for lots of families. And that would be this. So this would include stimulus checks up to $1,200, depending on some income parameters set out. Unemployment benefits. So the proposal sets enhanced unemployment benefits. So all right, unemployment benefits. Sorry, let me take this back again. Unemployment benefits. The proposal sets enhanced unemployment benefits at $400 a week, down from the $600 included in the CARES Act, but up from the $300 that Trump authorized this summer through executive action. So this would add back the federal pandemic unemployment compensation that unemployed workers were receiving, people were receiving, and the weekly $400 a week. It was $600 in the CARES Act. Trump came out and did an executive order back at the end of August, and it worked retroactively back to the beginning of August, I believe, and allowed for a $300. He set out $400 a week, but $100 was supposed to come from states, and I don't know of any state that enacted the extra $100. Here in Massachusetts, they only did $300 a week. So In most states, it was a not all states did the $300 yet, but most of them should be doing the $300 payment. Some people still haven't received it, but will receive either $300 a week or an $1,800 one-time payment for the 6 weeks that Trump's executive order authorized it for. So that was a temporary 6-week relief through executive order that Trump had enacted. And that has since expired. And so workers are not receiving any added benefit from the federal government right now. This stimulus that the White House offered would have enacted a $400 a week benefit for unemployed people. State and local funding, a big sticking point. The proposal includes $300 billion for cities and states, up from $250 billion in an earlier proposal. Pelosi's deputy chief of staff, Drew Hamill, said Friday that the speaker is concerned about the lack of a quote strategic plan to crush the virus in the end quote in the administration's proposal. So White House spokeswoman Alyssa Farah said on Friday that the administration wants to keep the cost of the bill below $2 trillion. It's also unclear if Senate Republicans would support any deal over $1 trillion. Now, they do say, so Trump does believe, by the way, Trump believes that he can get the Republicans to sign off on this $1.8 trillion plan that he set forward. So now, what happens next is up in the air. Politico reports that negotiators intend to work through the weekend and into next week on a deal, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell warns that with the election barely 3 weeks away, a deal is unlikely to happen before November 3rd. So Pelosi has rejected this deal. She was urged by... All right. So Pelosi was urged by Ro Khanna and even Andrew Yang. So Congressman Ro Khanna from California, he's the congressman of the district for Silicon Valley. And so Pelosi is also, part of San Francisco. Her district includes part of San Francisco as well. So Congressman Ro Khanna urged her to accept this offer. What we're talking about, I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, that what's included in that stimulus offer is enough to take the deal right now. Like, they're playing games about what Pelosi has said that she wanted included here is, something about, she's concerned about a tracking and a tracing program. So a virus tracing program being included in this, like for coronavirus. Listen, get that done in a separate bill. Like you can, if this is what you need to do, like that is not important enough in order to block the rest of this bill from moving forward. I mean, you're talking about $400 a week to unemployed folks and a $1,200 one-time payment to every adult, as well as $1,000 for each child dependent. So that's, you're talking about 22, 32, 4,200, could put potentially $5,000 or more for some families right now as a one-time payment, as well as an added $1,600 a month to unemployed, folks. So people that are receiving unemployment benefits right now would receive an extra $400 a week in their with the stimulus offer. So this should have been a deal that Pelosi accepted, to be honest. There's, they've held out, they've pushed for all that they can push for. At this point, we're talking about, the things that they're quibbling over are not things that are impacting the majority of working class people in their everyday life. So of course we want all the protections that can be offered for coronavirus and for workers under, that are having to work under these conditions, certainly. But there's a real chance here to help people, and people just need money right now. Like, people are hurting and people need money right now. Families need money, and it's absurd to hold this deal up till potentially after the election. And maybe if Trump doesn't get reelected, I mean, there's nothing incentivizing him to do this deal until Biden gets elected. Like, if Biden gets elected, until Biden gets inaugurated. So if Biden's elected and they don't get a deal done, there is a very real chance that no deal gets done until after the inauguration. So you're talking about all the way through October, November, December, January, 4 more months with no stimulus deal, while the eviction moratorium has expired and landlords are, evicting people left, right, and center. The airlines have furloughed 32,000 workers already. Disney just furloughed, or I believe they just let go of 28,000 employees. So they laid off. Disney laid off 28,000 workers. So these are people that are, disproportionately Black and brown. By the way, unemployment is at 7.9% right now. So are the official unemployment rate, which is considerably lower. Trump used to say, he used to admit that that's not a correct measure of unemployment, the unemployment rate, because the current unemployment rate, it doesn't measure people that have given up on looking for work, but would accept a job if one was made available to them. So there are a lot of people who have just simply given up on looking for work because they've been looking for so long. They're no longer looking anymore because they've given up hope on finding a job, but they would gladly take a job if one, were offered or came their way. So the unemployment numbers exclude those people. And so while the official unemployment number is around 7.9% right now, the unofficial unemployment number, according to economists like Professor Richard Wolff and even members of the Federal Reserve, the true unemployment number is much closer to double that, or more. So over 15-16% right now, and even higher in Black and Latino communities, even Asian communities, white communities. It's around, the official rate is at 7% right now for white people. The official rate right now for Black people is 12.1%. For Latino people, it's 10.4%, and for Asian people, it is 7.9. It is 7.9%. So the unemployment rate has been disproportionately higher for Black, Latino, and even in as well as Asian folks during the pandemic. So those are the official numbers. The unofficial numbers, the real numbers, are likely much higher than that, more, double or more than those numbers. So at one point in the pandemic, I was hearing numbers of 50% unemployment in the Black community. So, all right. So this is a deal that, Pelosi very, very well should have taken, didn't take, and it's going to cost working class people. People are going to continue hurting if they don't take this deal. You're not going to move this. Some of the Republicans, they don't even want to move to past $1 trillion right now. But you can pressure. If Donald Trump comes out and he supports this deal, he can make it painful for them politically, and he can hurt them politically. So they have to go along with him on this. So it really behooves the Democrats at this point. And Ro Khanna is he's a Justice Democrat, he's a progressive Democrat, and he's come out and urged Nancy Pelosi. And, Andrew Yang urged her as well. And Andrew Yang came out and urged Nancy Pelosi to take the deal. And Nancy Pelosi's daughter accused Andrew Yang of sexism for having the audacity, she said, to call her mother by her first name, call the Speaker of the House by her first name, while completely ignoring the substantive issue that Andrew Yang was raising here with, essentially a colleague. These are all people in the, highest political sphere here. And so they all hang out at the same events, and I'm sure she's told him to call her Nancy in the past. It's just such a ridiculous, absurd point, and it just completely distracts from the actual point that Andrew Yang was trying to make, which was these people are hurting, and we need to get people a stimulus deal right now. And so that was the actual substantive issue. But Nancy Pelosi's daughter seemed to think that it was actually Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang was apparently a sexist for calling that out. All right. Next up. Give me one sec here. All right. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us here tonight. If you haven't done so already, please do me a favor. Hit the like button down below. Follow us if you're on Twitch. If you're not on Twitch, I would like you to get on Twitch, create an account, and follow the show there, please, because we need to hit 50 followers on Twitch in order to cross their threshold to enter the Twitch partner program. So in order to be a Twitch partner and be able to accept donations directly on Twitch, we are going to need to reach 50 followers. So shout out to all of our Twitch community right now. Really appreciate all of you. Shout out to Oshi Fancy, one of our favorite Twitch followers right now. So please do us a favor. And if you're on Twitch and haven't followed us already, please follow us on Twitch. If you're not on Twitch, just get on Twitch and follow us on there. Help us grow the channel to at least 50 followers, and then we can cross the threshold for monetization on Twitch as well. So that's another goal that we have, and where the Twitch community has just been slow growing. I got to work more on trying to grow the Twitch platform, but yeah, that's that. I'm not on Twitch as much. I'm a YouTuber. I'm on YouTube all the time, and so I just know that platform much better. And that's why I've used it up until this point. So more and focused on it. So, all right. And if you can support the show financially, if you can afford to do so, please support us on Patreon. Become a member for as low as $1 a month. There are links in the description box below. Patreon.com/radical democracy. You can see it right there, as well as, again, in the description box below. Please open up that description box, click that link, and support the show as low as $1 a month. For $5 a month, you can become a member. We'll send you an invite to our Discord community where you can chat with members of the community and also, hang out, make suggestions for the show, things like that. So yes, please support the show. We need your support. We are independent, we have no corporate backing. We need your support. That's the only way this channel can continue to exist. So please support us in whatever way you can. You can also drop us a super chat, one-time super chat, or one-time tip on Coffee, coffee.com/radical democracy, ko-fi.com/radical democracy, and links are as always in the description box below. Okay, let's get to this next story. All right, because we are going to power through and we're going to make through a lot of stories today. I just want to make sure, because it's a young show. We're still young. It's early. We're learning. We're experimenting. We're developing the show as we go. We love to hear suggestions from the community. Please leave your thoughts always in the chat over there and in the comments below if you're watching this after the fact, and let us know what you think. Suggestions for the show, content, whatever the hell you want to talk about, just whatever's on your mind, let us know in the comments. And we love hearing from the community, love engaging with the community here. All right, next up. Okay, so I am a big, I'm a Killer Mike fan. I like Killer Mike. I think that he is a, great voice on the left. I like his music. The more I hear it, I dig his music. So it's political. It's beats. It's just he makes good music. He's he came out. He was great. Bernie surrogate, I think is the correct. I don't know if he was directly working on the campaign in some other capacity as well, but he was a big part of the Bernie movement, and definitely just respect all of his work there. And he's an important voice on the left, and he's a prominent voice on the left, and on the black left as well, especially. And so got nothing but the utmost respect for Killer Mike. He's been out there doing much more than I have done to forward the movement. And so I am not here. So I just want to run that disclaimer right off the top here. If anything that I say sounds overly critical, it's not of Killer Mike the person or anything like that here. So on this next story here, we have Killer Mike has opening a bank. So all right, let me do that again. Killer Mike is opening a Black-owned digital bank, and I wanted to talk about how I feel about this, and just all right. So let's get to it. Let's check out the story here, and then we'll discuss. So this is from CNN Business. Killer Mike's new Black-owned bank received tens of thousands of account requests in less than 24 hours. It's from Sunday, October 11th. Excuse me one second, y'all. Sorry, y'all. That's Kwame there. Kwame, I hope you should be watching this stream right now, buddy. Instead of you need to hit me up on here. You should be on here right now having this discussion with me. Kwame, feel free to come join me on the show right now. But yeah, that's Kwame Collins. Sorry for the interruption there. All right, y'all. Sorry. Okay. Let me start this over here. All right. So a new majority Black and Latinx owned and operated digital bank hopes to make supporting Black-owned banks and businesses a little easier for consumers. Greenwood was created by Bounce TV founder Ryan Glover and his close friend, rapper activist Michael Killer Mike Render. The leadership team at Greenwood, which includes former Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young, unveiled their new platform on Thursday after raising more than $3 million in seed funding in June. Glover has been working on Greenwood since early 2019, but he said interest in the venture spiked after the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis sparked a nationwide reckoning with racism that has inspired many Americans, including many in the corporate world, to support Black-owned businesses and financial institutions. While the bank doesn't open until January, the company launched its website on Thursday, and there is already a waiting list for those who want to open a Greenwood account. Quote, "I will say we're in the tens of thousands," end quote, Glover told CNN Business on Friday. Quote, "That number is increasing by the day." Here you can see a picture of the three of them. Killer Mike, Ryan Glover, and the former mayor of Detroit, Andrew Young. All right. So what is Greenwood? Like its competitors Chime, Aspiration, Moneyline, and Vero, Greenwood is a digital bank whose financial services, including checking and savings accounts, mobile deposits, and peer-to-peer transfers, are fulfilled almost entirely online. The bank offers a global ATM network, Apple and Android Pay services, and 2-day advances on paychecks for customers who sign up for direct deposit. Unlike its peers, however, Greenwood's target audiences are Black and Latinx communities and anyone else who wants to support Black-owned businesses. Glover says the bank will specialize in financing Black and Latinx entrepreneurs who typically have a harder time securing loans from mainstream commercial banks. In order to build wealth, you need bank capital, Glover said. We will identify qualified entrepreneurs, business owners, and creatives to equip them with the capital needed to make their dreams a reality. Greenwood is named after the former Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, an early 20th century African-American business community that was so prosperous it was nicknamed Black Wall Street. A mob of white Americans destroyed the Greenwood district during the 1921 Tulsa race massacre. All right. So, sorry, just jotting a note there. All right. So, why bank black? Before it was destroyed nearly a century ago, Glover said, $1 spent in Tulsa's Greenwood district would circulate 36 times before leaving the community. Today, $1 circulates for 20 days in the white community, but only 6 hours in the black community, Render said in a written statement. Black Americans are twice as likely to be denied mortgage loans by traditional banks, but minority depository account institutions have a better track record of lending to non-white individuals. This lack of fairness in the financial system is why we created Greenwood, Render added. That's Mike. That's Killer Mike right there is Mike Render. So, all right. So they said there $1 circulates for 20 days in the white community versus 6 hours in the, black community. So, all right. So that's something that I didn't know. And I thought was a really wild statistic. So, all right. Now, moving on in this, in 2017, about 17% of Black Americans didn't have a bank account compared to just 3% of white Americans, according to an FDIC study. There are only 23 minority-owned banks in the U.S. today. Glover says these brick-and-mortar institutions have done a fairly good job supporting minority communities over the years, but today is a new day. All right. So I got all right. I've got my window set up differently today, and it's really screwing with me, and I need to change it back to the way I had it before. Sorry, y'all. Okay. So that's, here you got a, Killer Mike, really, like I said, somebody that I have the utmost respect for and am not trying to disrespect in any way here, but definitely doesn't mean that we shouldn't be critical of our peers. And so I gotta be critical here, because what I'm seeing out of this is Black capitalism, and it's unfortunate. Hold on one second, y'all. I apologize. Can you message Kwame and tell him that? Huh? Yeah, thank you. All right. Sorry, y'all. Okay. All right. I got to start that over. Kwame, I'm really pissed at you right now, buddy. All right. You need to clean up your act, man. Fucking me up here. All right. Sorry. All right. So, yeah. So I got to be critical of Killer Mike here, because this is all I'm seeing here is Black capitalism. And, I like the idea. Listen, I think that it's a good idea, like it's a decent thing. Like it's one small step in the right direction. It's one small step in the right direction. But I'm going to bring in some clips from Fred Hampton. I'm going to play a few clips from Fred Hampton that I think really speak to what Killer Mike's doing here. And honestly, I just want to tie these two things together, because I think that I can't possibly say it better than Fred Hampton Sr. So I'm going to let Fred Hampton do some talking soon, but I just want to, just point out here that what they're doing is definitely like, so they're building a digital bank. It would be, there's no, the digital banks that exist right now, they say, these other folks haven't, other big banks haven't been as quick. Like major commercial banks have been like slow to embrace that sector, digital banking. And even though Americans have been banking online almost exclusively at higher rates in recent years, and so they are seizing on a trend of people banking online. I do my banking online. I use Aspiration Bank, one of the banks that was named here. I found out about it through TYT. And again, so I've used one of these progressive banks. If Greenwood opens, odds are I'll throw some money in Greenwood, and eventually I'll move my banking over to Greenwood, you know? So I'm not trying to knock it here. I'll probably use the institution because I want to support, my folks in whatever small way that I can. Even if it's a small way, I still want to do something to support. So I'll definitely support. I trust it. I would use that kind of, I use a digital bank right now. Like I said, I use Aspiration. I like the service. I think if you're not using a digital bank right now, check it out. Let me know. I'll send you an invite code. If you're in the Patreon community or whatever, I'll drop a link to my Aspiration invite link. If you don't have an Aspiration account already, definitely sign up and get one. If you need no, I'm not gonna sit here and I can't but it's a good institution. It's how I do my banking. So I trust it. I trust online banks. This is a good, a decent move in the sense of okay, now instead of it's again, all right. So it's just, my issue with it is that it's just one small step in the right direction and just doesn't move us far enough to what we need to move towards. And this is the kind of endeavor that consumes a lot of your time. This is going to consume a lot of Killer Mike's time. This is what he's putting his time and effort into. And unfortunately, while I think it's a seemingly noble cause, I understand where he's coming from, I think it will fall short for the reasons that Fred Hampton is about to point out here. But it was slightly, I'm not going to say, I don't know. How can I talk about, people like this? But it's a bit disappointing. I mean, who am I? It's not like Killer Mike's worried about disappointing me, but it is just I would expect bigger, better things of someone like Killer Mike, because he had a vision with these things, understanding the systemic problems and understanding I thought he had a grasp and an understanding of the systemic problems of capitalism. And so it's just unfortunate to me that his solution to capitalism is black capitalism. I mean, you can hear them all up and down this article talking about, black people need capital. We need capital. Listen, sure, capital matters. You got to have a startup. You got to have some way to fund your whatever movement, whatever the hell it is. You call it what you want to call it. It's capital. Whatever starting money that you start with, that's capital, right? But this is going to, when you don't fundamentally try to change the system and say, listen, if he was coming out with a bank that was going to support, folks I wish Killer Mike would team up with Cooperation Jackson and put $3 million into that effort of building, democratic workplaces and supporting democratic workplaces. And there are black run worker cooperatives. There's Jackson, Mississippi is a perfect example of they're gaining political power there. It would be a perfect place for him to partner up with some folks, with black folks that have a mission that is really trying to change the system, make fundamental changes to the system. And I just don't think that what he's doing here goes anywhere near that. So we'll hear from Fred Hampton here, and let me just bring in Fred Hampton to talk about black capitalism and as well as banking, black banking essentially, and his thoughts on that. So it's two clips. The first clip that we're going to listen to is him talking about banking, specifically in black banking. So let's hear Fred Hampton on this topic here.
What about this bank? Credit union? Credit union. Credit union, my brother. Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank. Are you going about money? Yeah, it's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people. Run for the people. Living into the colonialism like you got in Africa 9, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be education.
Sorry, I got to fix the speed on that. Sorry about that. Just realized it was playing double speed. Why don't you catch the full effect here? All right. Sorry about that. I'm going to play that clip again. This is Fred Hampton talking about his thoughts on black run banking without his thoughts on Black-owned banking.
What about this bank? Credit union? Credit union. Credit union, my brother. Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank. You go and buy money? Yeah. It's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people, run for the people, and by the people. What would money be given out to people for? Well, the people would decide that. You want to buy, whatever, the people in the community decide. You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe? See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the educational thing here. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned in the struggle, when we look at struggle, is that this depends on the educational thing, you dig? Because this depends on the education. Well, the whole thing. No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this. No, not the way we're talking about forming it. Right. We're talking about forming it right. It's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper. Form it right with no education. No. Let me give you an example. Jomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And then in the end thing, Jomo told the motherfucker, I said, well, you can educate hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm more pressure. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face, but he moved all the white people out and he took over and be the president. He did, causing no education. And the people that have been educated, they just said that we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what is going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Jomo Kenyatta is called not a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So is Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mile was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. What we're saying is the end. But you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's the people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa now, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we have Negro imperialists.
So there is Fred Hampton Sr. just letting you know that this is what we run the risk of with black capitalism is you put, if the problem is the system. It's not the color of the people who are running the system. He talked about how Fred Hampton talked about how, Papa Doc in Haiti, he hated everything white, and, he hated white people. He led a revolution, and then he became the oppressor himself. But he said, if you would ask those people, do you hate, do you want to get rid of, your oppressor? They wouldn't have cared whether it was, white, black, or whatever. They don't want anybody oppressing them, right? The people don't want anybody oppressing them. And so they don't care who it is or what the color of the person happens to be. This is, it's like we did a story on Attorney General Daniel Cameron in Kentucky. It's a black attorney general who's out there doing a cover up against, committing this cover up against Breonna Taylor and damaging, destroying, a black family and in a black communities. And that's all you'll get with that's all we're ever going to get. If our solution is black capitalism or rainbow capitalism, let's diversify our if our solution is diversify our oppressors, then it's still, I don't want any oppressor. I don't care what the color of the foot is in the boot on my neck. Like that's not the issue of concern. It's the boot on my neck, not the color of the foot that happens to be in it. So I don't, I just, if with this sort of solution, and when this is the effort that you're putting forth from Killer Mike, I can't help but see this as a setting himself up for failure here. Essentially, it will move the needle like, this much, and sure, it'll be slightly better, but all you're gonna get is black people exploiting other black people and brown people and maybe some poor white people. Ooh, yay. That's not my goal. My goal isn't to have the racially and in gender proportionality, in the oppressive class and ruling class. Like, I don't want there to be a ruling class. And the way that we stop there from being a ruling class, like, this isn't for somebody who believes in fighting against Medicare for all, fighting for Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, fight for 15, like, that is not how you push these things forward. And we've seen countless examples. I mean, there's black capitalists all over Africa that exploit the shit out of their people. Like, they exploit them. And so why do we think that this situation is going to be any different, that black Americans are somehow not going to exploit other black Americans? No, they're black capitalists. They're going to exploit. It's inherent. In order to succeed in the system of capitalism, you have to exploit others. If we're going to be doing black capitalism, while some black people are going to be able to amass, we'll just have a black Jeff Bezos. Like, that's what Killer Mike is going to, this effort is going to work towards, is working to get us the black Jeff Bezos. I don't want it. That's not the solution to the ills of the black community at large. Black communities, let me say, because there's no one black community, but black communities at large. That is not what is ailing us, is that we don't have enough black capitalists. We don't have enough black wealthy people. I don't want a handful of black wealthy folks and a whole bunch of poor black people. We got that. We got Beyonce and Oprah, and we can see you can get black, wealthy people. It doesn't help the rest of us to, when they happen to be rich and the rest of us are still out here suffering every day. Yep. I mentioned, Tammy, says, Daniel Cameron, who we mentioned, is just another example of those sorts of the black faces in high places. And Jim Clyburn out there, just these people that will sell out, and that's who the system will incentivize those sort of folks, and will elevate those sort of folks, and that's who we'll get. So when I see this, it just let me play one more clip from Fred Hampton here that this just reminding me of. This is a much shorter clip, so really quick clip from Fred Hampton here, just talking about how we should fight against capitalism. Should we use black capitalism to fight against capitalism? Let's hear what else Fred Hampton thinks here. So hopefully I won't screw this clip up like I did the last one. Sorry, y'all.
What makes them mad about it? What makes them mad about it is that they had black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism. When the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says, we don't think you fight fire with fire best, we think you fight fire with water best. We're gonna fight racism, not with racism, but we're gonna fight with solidarity. We said we're not gonna fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions with all of us people to get together and have an international proletarian revolution. Right on. And that's saying all power to the people. Right. That's saying that no matter what color you are, there's only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back, because this is lower, this is upper, this is the oppressed, this is the oppressor, this is the exploited, this is the exploiter. And these people in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fight amongst each other. And you've heard the testimony of pigs here, and you got pigs of all colors, you know that. You got pigs that are white, you got pigs that are black, you even got pigs that are black and white. Propagating the same type of madness that this buffoon Hanrahan would be propagating if he were here himself. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy, and that everybody else that's black and that wears a lot of hair on his head and hair on his face, they want to keep you thinking that he's your enemy. Why? Because if ever you would disregard him and overlook him just for a minute and throw away that question of racism and start into dealing with a little logic, then there would be no one else you could attack other than Hanrahan, other than Davy, and other than Tricky Dicky Nixon.
All right, so that's Fred Hampton dropping knowledge like he always does. If you're not familiar with Fred Hampton, check him out. That was a great black leader in the Black Panther movement who was assassinated by Chicago police and the FBI in his home in front of, laying in bed asleep next to his pregnant wife. At the time she ended up surviving. She had a son, Fred Hampton Jr., who's still alive to this day. But that was Fred Hampton Sr. assassinated by Chicago police at 22 years of age, I believe 22 or 23. So, and he was so accomplished before that. It blows my mind. So somebody that I definitely look up to, and never learned about him, never even knew his name until after I was over 25 years old before I ever even heard his name. You can go through college in the United States, you can be considered a smart person and never have ever heard of Fred Hampton Sr. So it just shows you, how, intelligence is all subjective. So some of the things that he said in there, and I let the clip play out a little bit longer because it's just such a damn good clip, and I just love it. So he said we don't fight, we're not going to fight racism with racism. We're going to fight racism with solidarity. You don't fight capitalism with black capitalism. We're going to fight capitalism with socialism. So you don't fight capitalism with you don't fight what's wrong with me today? You don't fight capitalism with black capitalism. You fight capitalism with socialism. So I think, that's something that just sticks with me. That quote comes up in my mind all the time. This is, I think, the unfortunate mistake that Killer Mike is making in opening this bank is that this is black capitalism. And I know where it leads. And it's to the same situation that what white capitalism has done for white people, which is to create an upper class and an underclass. Just anywhere that capitalism exists, it doesn't matter what the color of the people that are in it. You get three things inside of capitalism, wherever it exists. You get one, innately anti-democratic institutions. So inherently anti-democratic institutions are built under capitalism. How? You have a structure that is created whereby a handful of people, a small handful of people, the board of directors, the employer, and their major shareholders are able to make all the decisions for the masses of people. Usually you have about 10 or 20 people on the board of directors in a company that has thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of employees. And so you have a small handful of people, the board of directors and major shareholders, that are able to decide where to work, who gets to work, when you work, how you work, and what gets done with all the profits of that work. And so that small handful of people gets to make all those decisions in a capitalist, organization, which is anti-democratic because those are unelected people. You, the worker, don't get to elect your boss. You don't go and elect your boss. Your boss gets to pick and choose you, and they get to choose you. They have the hiring power. They have the firing power. So they have all the power in that situation, and you, the worker, have none. And that's the situation that capitalism creates. Wherever it exists, that system is enacted. That's inherent to the system. That is how capitalism works. That's what capitalism is: employer and employee. And that's how the employer is structured. So one, it's inherently anti-democratic. Two, it's inherently unequal. It creates wealth inequality. So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer under capitalism. And that cycle has continued for hundreds of years wherever capitalism has existed. And then 3, it is innately unstable. Sorry. So it is 3, it is innately unstable. So where you have every 4 to 7 years on average, wherever capitalism has existed in the world, every 4 to 7 years on average, there has been an economic downturn. They call it a business cycle, a recession, a depression. So they have all kinds of a boom bust cycle. They have all kinds of names for it. They've managed to come up with all kinds of names because they don't want to just call it what it is, which is crashes of capitalism that recur every 4 to 7 years on average, everywhere that capitalism has ever existed. And so look at in America here, since the turn of the century, since 2000, we have had 3 major crashes of capitalism in the first 20 years of the century. So work out the math. That's one every, 6.5 years about. You have a crash of capitalism in the first just 2 decades of this century so far. We've had the dot-com crash, the dot-com bubble. We had the 2008 housing crisis. So we had the 2008 recession, and then we have the 2020, what they're calling the COVID recession, or most likely what we'll find eventually is a depression, right? So we're likely in the greatest depression in U.S. history based on the mass unemployment at historic scale that we have never experienced in this country before. And the threat of evictions that are facing millions of Americans right now, the loss of health care in the middle of a pandemic as well is just, indicative of a declining empire. So that's where we stand right now. And the reality is it's the system. It's not that it's white people that happen to be in control of it. Of course, the racism, and I've heard a quote recently I forget who it was from. I apologize because I can't attribute it to the professor that I heard giving a lecture. And he said that race and he said I would add gender. So he would add gender. So race and gender are the modalities under which capitalism exists, right? Under which class exists, right? So those are the modalities under which class exists. So our race, race and gender. And so those are just sort of the modes of class. And so those are intertwined concepts, and they're closely intertwined. But that doesn't mean that these capitalism exacerbates those problems, and it's just inherently set up to create that instability, the inequality, and the anti-democratic systems that it creates. And those are the things that, unless we change capitalism, and capitalism being defined very clearly as a system, an economic system structured with an employer-employee relationship, right? You have the employer, the board of directors, the major shareholders, and the employee. And you know who you are. Anybody listening to this, you're the employee. I'll tell you that right now. You're not the employer. So we had slave, we had master and slave in slavery. We had lord and serf under feudalism. King and subject under monarchy, right? So there were and now we have employer-employee under capitalism. And the way that you end capitalism is by ending the employer-employee relationship. And building a black bank doesn't do it. If your black bank only supports, democratic workplaces, then boom, yeah, you're doing it. And I cannot wait till the day. If it doesn't happen and I'm still around and I got, enough connections and whatever the hell, I'll start the damn bank. But what we need to do is, this is how it works. In Mondragon, Spain, they started with one worker cooperative 60 years ago now. They started with one worker cooperative with 6 people. And from that, they've grown to over 100,000 people now. And they have their own banks, and they have their own university. They have their own school system. They have their own policing system. So they were able to develop their own communities out of these democratic workplaces that they started. The one democratic workplace that was started. And, I don't know if this will be the one, but as long as we start more and more of these democratic workplaces, one of them will catch on and will hold on. I would like to build a democratic media platform and a democratic media outlet. And this is just the start of that journey. And please, join us on that journey, support the show, help us out on that journey. Become a member of the show, patreon.com/radical democracy, links in the description box below. That's how you support the show. That's how you support workplace democracy. That's how you build these movements and how you actually overturn capitalism. You want to support those movements, please support this show, support what we're doing here. We are building democracy in the workplace, because that is the fundamental change that we need to make if we're really serious about getting these things that we say we want, like Medicare for all, and really giving healthcare, universal healthcare, housing as a human right. Like, we're not going to get housing as a human right under capitalism. It's just never going to exist under capitalism. The only way we ensure that every human being gets housed is we overthrow capitalism. And the only way we overthrow capitalism is by building democratic institutions in the place, building through dual power. We have a failing institution of capitalism. We need to replace the failing institution of capitalism with our own socialist structures. And so please support democratic workplaces wherever you are. Check out Cooperation Jackson and the work that they're doing there. Support the show here if you can, for as low as $1 a month. Check out the description box below, has links to our Patreon. Please become a member, support the show, help build democratic institutions, help overthrow capitalism and you know what? That actually connects. For our next story, let's cut to the story. I have a story of Richard Wolff on the difference between worker cooperatives and cooperatives versus capitalism. So we'll do that story next. But before I go here, I just want to say one more time, love and respect Killer Mike. I would love to have him on the show. Absolutely love to have him on the show someday. He is somebody that I have nothing but the utmost respect for. And I don't want to come across as acting like, again, we're all trying to do what we think is best. I'm confident that he is doing what he believes is the best thing to do to help move Black people forward. And so I do not begrudge him for the work that he's doing here. I have nothing but respect for it, and just want to make sure that I make that clear, and that I'm not just shitting on, Killer Mike, the person. I'm just saying that these efforts in general are going to fall short, and we should have the foresight to see why they're going to fall short. And it's because they're not replacing the system. We keep on saying the system is the problem, but if we don't replace the system, if we don't fundamentally change the system, then we will, nothing will fundamentally change for any of us. So we got some comments we're going to get to before we go to the next segment here. So let's get to some comments. Mark McKeever says, it's good to see them embracing this invitational banking this invitational banking early, rather than seeing it, quote, stolen by the big investors like the hemp/marijuana industry. Oh man, I could go on and freaking on about the weed industry. As somebody who has been, I've been arrested, I've been summons to court over being stopped by police and then being found with cannabis when it was illegal in Massachusetts. This was before it was legalized, and then had that been dragged through our unjust criminal justice system for that, and seen what that's like. I don't talk about it, but your boy used to do some things, all right. Like Lupe Fiasco says, how come you don't rap that? Because that's a backtrack, and I ain't trying to back. So that's a backtrack. I ain't trying to back. So I don't talk about some of that past, but that's the reality. To watch the cannabis industry, and I'm, my family's Rastafarian. I got my father, I got brothers in Jamaica who grow, weed by the ton, sometime literally. And so, I definitely have a close connection with cannabis, and as somebody that grew up Rastafarian, And to see that industry taken over by capitalists the way that it has been it's just so gross. And it disgusts me, because here was a industry that we the people were persecuted for even participating in for so long, and disproportionately Black and brown people in this country were discriminated against for this industry that we all knew that it was that we weren't hurting nobody, that this thing was a harmless plant, that we were, a medicine that we were using. Now it's got, medicinal protections and all sorts of things. And here we knew that. We saw that early. We were entrepreneurial in that sense, and we were persecuted for that. And then here comes, Marlboro and all these cigarette companies that for years had fought against the cannabis industry because they didn't want them to hurt their profits in the tobacco industry and even the alcohol industry. And so here they are fighting against that for decades. And then the moment that we the people have finally fought to get it legalized, now they get to just swoop in with all their capital, with all their money that they already had, because they've been sitting there persecuting all the Black and brown communities so that we could never make money out of this shit. So all my money, it gets taken. If it gets stolen, I can't get any legal protections. I've dealt with all kinds of shit. And, weed trade, drug trade, shit. Like, it's so and now it's a legal industry, and now all these capitalist institutions, they just come in, swoop in, and benefit from all the work of activists, the fight to legalize this thing. And now the capitalists can come in and they just drop a couple of bucks, and they can now structure these organizations as, again, funneling money up to the top into the hands of a select few, while communities, they extract money from these communities, and those dollars won't circulate inside of Black communities because the investors at the top of all those companies are white folks. Let's be real, it's mostly white men at the top of all these cannabis industry companies around here. So it's an infuriating thing. And we got a local politician here in Boston who ran for mayor, called Tito Jackson, another Black capitalist that pisses me off. He's out here just like voter shaming right now and doing all kinds of the worst stuff. But this dude is another, all he cares about is we're gonna make Black led businesses in the marijuana industry. And it's like, yeah, but it's Black capitalist businesses that are going to exploit workers and are going to create the same conditions and propagate the same terrible conditions of capitalism wherever else it exists. So and to do that to an industry that we knew was a profitable industry that was being run by people, it just decentralized, no capitalist, and that was a perfect industry for building democracy in the workplace and to democratize the workplace. In those, if we had something like a Marcora law in Italy, in this region of Italy, in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy, they have something called the Marcora law. And the Marcora law says that if you become unemployed and you can get together with 9 other unemployed people and agree to all put your money in together to take a lump sum on your unemployment benefits, if you'll all agree to create a democratic workplace, you can all, instead of getting your weekly unemployment benefits, you can take it all out in one lump sum for your full payment. And as long as you agree to pool it together and to structure your to build a business as a worker cooperative, a democratically owned and operated worker cooperative. And in that region of Italy, now at this point, that law has been enacted for a few decades now. I think it's been about 40 years now that law has existed, 40 or 50 years that the Marcora law has existed. And 1/3 of the GDP in that region of Italy, it comes from worker cooperatives. So this is something that if we had some basic support, if we could fight for some basic laws like that and to get that kind of basic support, then I would, that's what I want to see. So yes, I think that it's good to see them jump on this, but this is being taken by investors. So whether they're big investors or small investors, unfortunately, Mark, they're still investors, they're still capitalists, and they're still going to do everything that capitalists do. So I really, whether it's a big investor or a small investor, it just doesn't make a whole hell of a difference to me. I've worked in the tech industry where I've been funded by small investors and big investors, and the experience has been the same whether we had big investors or small investors. It was still capitalism, it was still exploitative, and it still felt dirty and gross at the end of the day, and undemocratic, and it's wage slavery, no matter how you flip it. So I do it is a step. Like I said, Mark, it's a step, and it's a shade better. No pun intended, but pun intended. It's a shade better than white capitalism, but it's still capitalism, and it still has all the faults of capitalism. And that's my real issue with this. Killer Mike's Black Bank, Greenwood. Yeah. Any more comments? All right. Take a sip while Tammy pulls the next one. Mark McKeever says, did Killer Mike advocate for government banking at USPS locations? That being part of Bernie's platform? I think so. I think that he at least he was on board, and he was pushing Bernie, and Bernie was pushing the USPS postal banking rules. For folks that don't know, postal banking would just allow the post office branches that already exist. They already do small cash transactions for money orders and things like that. This would extend it so that they could actually they would become banking centers, and you could do things like take loans out, and they could process loans and do, so you would have, a local banking that would also help fund the post office from the fees that they were able to take from that. It would help to fund the post office, and it would also get rid of things like what's the word that I'm looking for? Predatory payday lenders. So it would help combat predatory payday lenders, because you would be able to take out things like payday loans, but at fair, interest rates. Not the right now payday lenders, they can charge upwards of 1,000-2,000% interest on these things. So it's absurd what payday lenders can charge, and it's very predatory. It's predatory lending practice, and this would help to combat that predatory payday lender practice. So and also again help fund the U.S. Postal Service as well. So Killer Mike, he definitely was a supporter of Bernie's, and therefore, at least indirectly supported that movement. So, and I'm sure he's familiar with it, and that's what I would be like. I would rather see people put their efforts into that. I don't care about, this is going to help the founders of that bank, and the founders of that bank and their investors are going to get wealthy off of this. And that's all that's happening here. And it's going to, help funnel money into the hands of a few wealthy Black people. And that's what's really, and of course, some of this money, they're going to invest in Black-owned businesses, but those Black-owned businesses are going to be Black capitalist businesses. So unless their focus is on, worker cooperatives and democratically worker-owned, worker self-directed enterprises, then I'm not sold on it. It's not the movement that I'm going to be focused on putting my effort and energy into. Like I said, I will most likely open an account at Greenwood as somebody that is, wants to support Black businesses as best I can, or Black people. I want to support Black people as best I can. And so that's one small way that I know I can do something more to support than where my dollar is going right now. So I'd rather put my dollar there than even at an Aspiration. I'd rather put my dollar in Aspiration than at Bank of America. I moved over to Aspiration years ago. I've been an account holder at Aspiration for the past 3 years, and I've done all my banking through Aspiration. So, all right, moving on. Next comment. I gotta power through so I got to get to at least one more story here. So within the 2 hours here. So Shin says, it seems that African Americans overwhelmingly support capitalism over socialism. That's not a good thing. Do you agree? I honestly don't think that there is any. I don't know that there's any. I haven't seen any numbers that suggest that there's a unique, a disproportionate amount of Black people that support capitalism. Honestly, if anything, I would argue that, if anything, it's likely to go in the opposite direction, because more Black people and brown people are hurt by the system of capitalism. And so I don't think that's true. I'd have to see some statistics on that, but I don't believe that that's true, Shin, unfortunately. Tammy says, well, I don't think there's any accurate representation of Black people who do identify as socialist or left wing. So do you think we can say that there's so few? Exactly. I don't think. Oh, sorry. I'll say that again. So I don't know where I read that wrong. So Tammy says, well, I don't think there's any accurate representation of Black people who do identify as socialist or left wing. So I don't think we can say that there's so few. Yeah. So I don't think that we can say that there's necessarily so few people. I just think that we don't have a lot of representation out there. And that's why we're trying to do, what we're doing here on the show is to add to that chorus, that small, quiet chorus right now of Black people in left-wing spaces, because I don't think that we have enough representation. I think that these spaces have been consumed by a lot of white folks, to be honest, and have, sort of been overrun by white folks. And so they don't always feel as welcoming to Black people. It's not that Black people aren't socialists. It's just that maybe they aren't feeling welcome in socialist spaces. And so that's what we hope to open up through the show, is to create a space, more space for that, for somebody, even, I don't know that Tim Black just outrightly identifies as a socialist. I'm talking shit about my boss right now. I better be careful, right? See, that's capitalism, baby. That's Black capitalism right there. No, no, but I don't even know if Tim Black, I don't know if he identifies as a socialist or if he says he's capitalist. My guess is that he's like, fuck capitalism. But I don't know. I need to find that out actually. But like, yeah. So anywho, my point being, like, even Tim Black, who's like the best left wing voice out there, I don't even know if he outwardly identifies as socialist. But I think he honestly, let me take that back, because he probably does actually. I just don't hear him talking about democratic socialism, about democracy in the workplace. He definitely isn't pushing that narrative as hard as I would even like to see. And so I want to create, that voice on the left doing that work. So Tammy says one reason could be the same reason as most people aren't socialist or left wing. They're the average misinformed or uninformed person. Yeah, exactly. Like, most people don't know how, they don't correctly politically identify themselves because they're somewhat apolitical. So that's another issue, is that people just can't correctly identify themselves. If you asked me 5 years ago what I would have told you that I was a centrist who was socially liberal and fiscally conservative. I used to say that, and I had no clue until somebody actually started asking me based on policies, hey, do you support this? Do you support that? And I realized, no, I'm a socialist actually. So Shin says, here's the reality. Even if you got rid of racism 100%, capitalism would still exist. I despise race reductionists. Tammy says, yes, and capitalism, classism, and racism are intertwined. I condemn class reductionists as well as race reductionists. Yeah, exactly. Like reductionism, any sort of class or race reductionism, I think is just an exercise in futility. I think it's a waste of time. If I would lean any direction, it's towards class reductionism, honestly, because class reductionists will at least accidentally end up helping raise people up out of the shared conditions. Okay, yes. Hold on. Let me.
Understands now.
My super producer over here is yelling at me in the background. So I'm like, why am I getting yelled at, y'all? What did I do wrong, Ma? So I'm getting yelled at over here. I'm sorry, y'all. All right. Tammy says, even if capitalism was abolished fully, racism can still exist too. Class reductionism can support racism because it applies to the colorblind effect. Different communities can share some problems, but also have issues unique to them. And race reductionism might appear more prevalent because racism used to be the most prominent obstacle, though it was also intertwined with classism, but it was racist policies that kept them poor. Yeah. So, I think, what Tammy's saying there, as I understand it, is that, race reductionism can sometimes seem like it's the more prevalent issue, but that is, it's not necessarily the case.
Capitalism escalated in a newer way.
Yeah.
Isn't capitalism newer
than racism?
Yeah, in fact, I was just Tammy was saying, isn't capitalism newer than racism? And the answer that as I understand it, and I know, is yes. And I was actually just watching a talk called Racial Capitalism, and this is where I also heard that quote that I mentioned earlier, and I recommend it, but I can't remember who the professor is that was giving this talk, and he was actually talking about how I believe the Black author name is Charles Robinson, I believe, wrote a book on this idea of racial capitalism and coined this term racial capitalism. And he talked about in that book, he talks about how racism preceded capitalism, and that there were there was racism under feudal systems as well. And he makes a lot of historical references to outline that. And so yes, Tammy's correct that racism preceded capitalism. Of course, there's classism in all of these different structures before. We have had classism throughout all of that, and so they are just deeply intertwined. And it's not just capitalism. Getting rid of capitalism doesn't get rid of racism. Getting rid of racism doesn't get rid of capitalism. We need to get rid of both. Boom. Like that's my thoughts on that. So hope that clarifies my position. All right. Any more comments that we want to get to before I?
No, finish your topic.
Okay. I want to jump over to Richard Wolff, helping us to understand the difference between co-ops versus capitalism. And so this is connected to this. And so I think that these intertwine well. So I want to take a look at this clip from Professor Wolff. This was on a recent Professor Wolff does a series on his Democracy at Work YouTube channel. Please, if you aren't subscribed, please, you should be subscribed to Richard Wolff, Democracy at Work. Check out his work. He is an amazing resource. So please, use him as a resource. Economist, Professor Richard Wolff, Professor Emeritus at UMass Amherst. He graduated with like 2 doctorates from Stanford and Yale, and he's attended Harvard. He's got all the credentials that you need to trust his opinion on this, and he's been teaching economics for about 50 years now, or 40 years now, and for his entire adult life he's taught economics. And he does this great show, a weekly show called The Economic Update. He does a bi-monthly a lecture called Global Capitalism Live Economic Update, but his weekly economic update is just must-see content and news, and the way that he boils down these concepts into very understandable, digestible format, is unlike any other. There is nobody else that can explain these concepts the way that Professor Wolff does. And so I highly recommend that you check out his work, democracyatwork.info, and on YouTube at Democracy at Work. This is from a segment on his YouTube channel, the Democracy at Work YouTube channel, where it's called Ask Prof. Wolff, where he accepts questions from members of his Patreon community. We should do something like that here as well. And he's answering this question, and so I'm gonna play his answer, and he's going to explain the difference between worker co-ops and capitalist enterprises. So this is titled How Worker Co-ops Differ from Capitalist Enterprises.
Here's the basic question. Granted that
that sounds a little fast. I always listen to things at a faster speed. Sorry.
Here's the basic question. Granted that a transition from capitalistic hierarchical enterprise structures to worker co-ops as a more democratic, a more just arrangement if we have individual enterprises, for example, owned by the workers who both work in and run them, wouldn't those enterprises be caught up in the competitive capitalist market system and end up acting not all that differently from the way capitalist enterprises do? I want to respond to this because I think there is an analytical issue here of importance as well as a political one. Here's the analytical issue. This has to do with whether profits occur, are produced in the act of exchange in markets or inside the enterprise. My conviction, and that of many economists, is that profit doesn't happen in the market. That's where money is made, that's where you get your revenue, but that's not where the profit comes. Let me explain. In a capitalist enterprise, the workers produce by their labor, their use of their brains and muscle. They add more value to whatever it is the capitalist sells than it costs the capitalist to pay them. And that's where the profit lies. You get more out of your worker than you pay him or her. And if that becomes untrue, if what you pay the worker is more than the extra benefit you get from whatever that worker contributes, that's when you fire the worker. You don't have them anymore. You're not doing each other a favor. You're signing a contract. The worker wants the wage and gets it. The employer wants the fruits of the worker's labor and gets it. But the employer wants something more. He wants the fruits of that worker's labor to be worth more to him as an employer than it costs to hire the worker, because otherwise he's not going to hire the worker. Profit occurs in the enterprise during and by virtue of production. The capitalist then sells the goods at their value, at the price that he gets in the market. That price is sometimes higher, sometimes lower. All the capitalist needs is to get the value, or more, that would be nice, but at least the value of the output, what it's worth, because then he captures that difference between what the worker adds when he works and what you pay him. And therefore, it's not in exchange, it's not in markets that profits are made. It's in the capitalist system, in the enterprise. So now shift your focus to a worker co-op. There too, the workers add more, each of them, by their labor than they take out of the enterprise for their wages. But notice my words. The workers take out of their own output the portion for themselves. They don't give over the difference. That is, the excess of what they add compared to the wage they get. They don't turn that over to somebody else. That's capitalism. They turn it over to the employers. But in a worker co-op, they turn it over to themselves. What they don't take as workers, that excess, is the profit of the enterprise that all the workers together will now decide what to do with. Notice the crucial difference is who gets that surplus, that difference between what a worker adds by his or her labor relative to what they get paid in a capitalist system or give themselves in a worker co-op system. So I'm not too worried that you're going to undo the benefits of worker co-ops if you have a market where workers exchange the fruits of their labor. The big differences will come because you have rearranged the enterprise. There is no longer going to be a small group of people at the top who run the enterprise for them because they're the ones in charge. Now the ones in charge are everybody. One person, one vote. That's the rule of a worker co-op. So the workers together produce an excess of output over what they take back as their own income, and then they together decide what to do with that excess. That's what a democratized workplace means. Well, will they use markets? Will they?
All right, so that was Richard Wolff breaking down the crucial difference between a capitalist enterprise and a worker cooperative, and that being the fact that, for one, he says, the profits in a workplace are come from the point of production. Profit comes from the point of production. This is actually explained in a clip that we showed on our Labor Day special. And I'm actually in the process of editing the video and releasing that. So I should have the video up by tomorrow, where Richard Wolff breaks down this formula for the embodied labor, is all the labor that comes in, the nails, the glue, all that stuff, that the labor that's embodied into making of those materials. If you're going to make a chair, right, you get like the nails, the hammer, the glue, but those materials were created by some other workers, right? Like the capitalist didn't go out and build those tools, right? He just bought them and gave them to you. But the way that he bought them was with the profits that he got from some other workers working, right? And so for one, he wants to point out and make sure that it's clear to folks that the profit is not created by markets, but in fact created by workers when they add their labor to the production of something. So you get your hammers, your nails, your glue, the worker comes in, they bang on it and piece that together, and they make a chair or a desk, right? And then that's where the profit is created, is when the worker did all that, added their labor into those materials. That's when the profit was created. And the question then becomes, well, then who gets to decide what gets done with that profit? Well, in a capitalist enterprise, and this is the really crucial difference between a capitalist enterprise and a democratic worker cooperative, is that in a capitalist enterprise, once you make that profit, the workers then turn that profit over. After producing it, they then turn that profit over to the capitalist to then decide what to do with it. Then they get to decide, well, how much profit do we want to make on this? Do we want to sell it at a higher price, whatever, and then, what do we want to do with the excess that we get? They then decide how much to then give back to the worker. That's your wage. And then they decide what to do with the rest of it. That's all the profits, right? And the difference between the difference being in a worker cooperative, that the workers, after they're done adding that profit to the, in the production of this item, of this widget, then they don't turn it over to a capitalist. They don't turn that profit over to a capitalist in a democratic workplace. Instead, in a worker cooperative, they turn it over to themselves. And then they themselves are able to make the decision about what gets done with the profit. So Richard Wolff, what his bigger point that he's making is that he's not all that concerned about what's going to happen in the marketplace. And because markets have existed outside of capitalism, some people seem to have this thought that capitalism is markets. That's what defines capitalism. But markets existed before capitalism, and markets will likely exist after capitalism. There were markets in slavery. There was the slave market. There was the market for all the items that the slaves produced, right? Like cotton and tobacco. So there were markets for those items as well. And under feudalism, you had merchants who took their wares to the market, and you had marketplaces, and people could go to market and trade and buy and sell. So markets have existed in other economic systems. They are not unique to capitalism. And what is unique to capitalism is the employer-employee relationships. That is what is unique to capitalism, to the economic system of capitalism. So in a democratic workplace like what we're building here at Radical Democracy, it is one worker, one vote on all major decisions: what to do, where to do it, how to do it, when to do it, and what gets done with the profits, the excess, the surplus of our labor. So that's going to be decided democratically here. If you would like to support that movement, please support the show at patreon.com/radical democracy. That's link. There are links in the description box below. Patreon.com/radical democracy. You can sign up for as low as $1 a month, just $1 a month. If you can afford it, please make that happen for us. Help us out in that way. $1 a month on Patreon. For as low as $5 a month, you'll get an invite to our Discord server where you could chat with us in the community and, you know, all kinds of fun stuff. Talk about news of the day stuff, suggestions for the show, things like that. So please join our Patreon community for, again, as low as just $1 a month. Again, it's only if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty. We appreciate your support. You can just hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this out far and wide. You can always send us a super chat. If you have any comments that you want to make sure get read, please send us a super chat. And those comments will be seen by the community, and we'll make sure we read any comments or questions that come in through super chat.
You can also set the rate you want for Patreon per month. So the tiers are just there. So
yep. And Tammy said, reminds me that the tiers are on Patreon are just suggestions. You can set the rate to any amount that you want to on Patreon. You don't have to pick a specific tier. You set whatever amount you want. You can do $1, $2, $2.17, $2,000, $2,020. You can do any amount per month that you want to do. You pick the rate. The tiers are just there for suggestions and, you know, different benefits that you reach at each different tier. So please support us, patreon.com/radical democracy. You can also support us with a one-time tip at coffee.com/radical democracy. And thanks to a suggestion from Brian Dew, we may open up the recurring donations on Coffee. It costs $6 a month right now. It would normally cost $9 a month, but they have a promotion since they've only recently launched. So it's like their launch price for their gold plan, and they're offering it for $6 a month lifetime right now. So we are probably going to jump on that and do the $6 a month gold plan on Coffee, which would allow us to take recurring donations. And Coffee's just a little better for us because they take less fees from Coffee. So if you want to help support the show even more for the same amount of money that you're already, doing, we'll ask folks to switch over to Coffee once we get that set up. So thank you to Patreon member Brian Dew for the suggestion. We'll definitely take that under advisement and probably, make that happen. So, all right. I don't think I have anything else to say here. Again, thank you to everyone for being here with us today. Really appreciate you being here. Our goal was to keep this show under 2 hours, and I really want to stick to that. Shin, just by the way, I did see your comment there. Shin says, do you think I can watch a YouTube video from 2016 about Bernie Sanders called Bernie Sanders Not a Socialist Choice? I would appreciate it. I have it written down right here on my list of things to do. So I will check out that video, and then maybe we can play it in a clip for the rest of the community in our next show. If there's anything there that I think is needs to be shared on the channel. I don't have time to do it right now. Unfortunately, just because time's short right now. And again, we want to keep this stream under 2 hours. We're up against it right now. We got about 9 minutes before we hit our time limit there. So I will check it out on my own, though. I have it written here. I'll put some big stars next to it so that I make sure that I see it. And I will check that out, Shin, and get back to you on that. So we can maybe chat about it on the next stream. And so thank you for the suggestion. Appreciate the suggestion. We'll definitely check that out. All right. Any other thoughts, comments? Please leave them in the chat over there, or in the comments below if you are watching this after the fact, not on the live stream. Heads up, today we monetized our live stream for the first time today. So I don't know. We're just experimenting with YouTube's monetization feature. So we monetized the live stream today. You might have seen some ads at the beginning of the stream. If you want to help us earn some money and you can't afford to support us with, financially out of pocket, one thing you can do is just let the ads run if you really want to, if that doesn't bother you. and you'd like to support the show, help us earn some revenue, then please just let the ads run whenever they play, and let me know how annoying it is for you. Tell me in the, we can tell me in the comments, in the chat, if ads are bothering you and the community wants ads removed, particularly the paying community, because it does matter. We need financial support, and we can't just not, we won't be able to survive without financial support. So in particular, if our paying members of the community don't want to deal with ads, then we will remove ads for everyone. There's no way to just remove ads if you're a member, unfortunately. So we can remove that for everyone. Once we get to a certain point of revenue and we're earning enough revenue, we'll just turn the ads off, because if we don't need that source of revenue, because I don't want to bombard people with ads, and I would prefer not to use advertising, but we do need money, and we're broke. So we need some money. So need the support. Brian says, I missed the first 70 minutes, unfortunately, but we'll watch it later. Thank you so much, Brian. Hope you heard the shout out just now to yourself. Thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate you being here and for all the support and the good suggestions. Love it. Appreciate you. You've been an invaluable member of the community and just love it. Shout out to X too. Thank you so much, X, for the that logo is dope and we are loving it. We just updated all of our thumbnails with the new logo, X. So now you'll start to see, like, even the logo, the thumbnail for this video, I think, was done with your X's logo. And thank you to X and Tammy. X did the logo. Tammy was communicating with X all the while, going back and forth in order to help refine and give feedback on it. And so it was really a collaborative effort from Tammy and X, and I just love to see it. And so shout out to both of them for all the work that they did in getting that design done. And then Tammy does all this awesome work. Like, she just made a bunch of new thumbnails so that we have like default thumbnails, so that anytime there's like breaking news or an episode that we need to do and we can't like put together a fancy thumbnail for it, we now have a thumbnail that we can use as a backup. And so these are just these help us to move faster, to get to the stories quicker, and to get you more content. So it's so deeply appreciated, all the work, all the help and support from all the entire community, and of course our super producer Tammy. I wish we could pay her a lot. We need to pay her, period. And so that we don't lose her to other work. She gotta get paid. She gotta make that paper. So, if we want to keep Tammy, we got to get that funding up. So Brian Dew says, part of what Professor Wolff is saying when he says profits are determined in firms is that wages are set within firms. Yeah. Hard to imagine a co-op where everyone votes to give themselves a horrible wage. Exactly. Like, we're not, we will look at what the profits are. We look at how much we're making. We're not going to sit there and not pay ourselves a living wage. And even if we did, the money that was all left over, we would be democratically deciding all together and with equal say what gets done with it. So it's like, we're still our money. It's still our money. Even if it's not going in through wages, it's going back into a business that we still own. So, but absolutely, you're not going to have a bunch of workers vote to give themselves less than a living wage when they know what the profits are, so that a few of the workers can be rich, filthy rich, while the rest of them are struggling to make ends meet. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. You're not going to get all the workers to get together and decide that the ex-wife of your CEO deserves to be the wealthiest woman in the world, while you got those workers peeing in bottles and, having mental breakdowns in the workplace because the work is so grueling. So there's just no way, and so demanding. So there's no way that workers all get together. Workers at a plant in Michigan aren't going to decide to get together and close the plant and ship their jobs, overseas to go while exploiting low wage labor overseas. They're not going to do it. So it absolutely is the way forward. And I hope to become even better over time, one day to be as good and eloquent as Richard Wolff, conveying these ideas so that we can help grow this movement, because somebody's going to have to. Richard Wolff, I love him and I hope he's around for another 50 years, but he's an older brother and he's getting up there, and we gotta we can't expect all this. We got to let our, the older folks, the older generation, like, they deserve some time to retire and enjoy some of the last years of their lives, and like, we gotta allow them to pass the torch to the younger generation. And so I would like to be somebody that can eventually, carry that torch forward for voices like that, and to continue until we finally, realize this movement and see these policies enacted at scale. Then we need to continue to push this narrative and to try to convey this information to as wide of an audience as possible. And so trying to do my part here and our part here on the show to propel that movement forward and to try to bring about a just economic system that we can live under, and hopefully therefore a just political system would flow from that naturally. So let's hope so. That's what we are working for. That's where our hope lies here. That's where my hope lies for sure. And what I intend to focus on in these coming years is how do we build democratic institutions, truly democratic institutions, because the so-called democratic institutions that we have at the moment are failing us by and large. Look at our Congress. We did this story earlier on the failures of Congress right now in the midst of this pandemic and economic catastrophe that we're under. Congress and the White House are failing the American people. The judiciary, it's just these systems are failing. People are losing faith in these institutions, and people have lost faith in the institution of policing. It long ago happened in Black and brown communities. We never had faith in the institution of policing in Black and brown communities. And finally, our white, brothers, sisters, siblings are catching up to this. And so it's good to see. So thank you so much to everyone. We are at the 2-hour mark. Pretty much we are 1 minute away from that 2-hour mark, and I am not letting this surpass 2 hours. So I am going to roll out now. Thank you so much to everyone for being here with us today. I will play us out with a little bit of this track from What Up America, aka Plasmon, aka Ian Olson. Thank you so much for your work on this track. So let's just let's close out with this. Thank you so much for your work on this amazing, amazing song. Appreciate it.
People you're talking about, they spent money on white women. They set up bars and they went playing pool and golf for $1,000 a hole, and they were known to make millions and millions when there wasn't no high taxes, and they were not hindered by white America. They were allowed to see the white America is complete and close all the doors on me. I'm not allowed to work in America, out of America. I was stopped right in my prime just when I started making money. So you can't compare me with nobody like Joe Lewis or nobody.
If you are black, if you are brown, if you are indigenous, and if you are poor, this system is rigged and it is right to the core, and we gonna unbreak it. That's it. And that's all.
That other kind of socialism that revolutionizes the workplace, brings democracy to the workplace for the first time.
So that's one way. And then the other thing is, in my more optimistic days, he's such a perfect endpoint of everything that is toxic and dysfunctional about the United States, about capitalism, about the 80s, that maybe this is the final sort of disgusting burst before we evolve or change it to something better.
Talk about some things about why we need a new party. So I thought that'd be a good way to kind of do this. Why do we need a new party? We need a new party because both parties suck.
What are they talking about? Fortified. Are you fortified for the long run? Do you have your cemetery clothes on? Are you coffin ready to live and die for something bigger than you, like a fundamental transformation of a capitalist civilization?